Good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, December 30th, 2014, and time for the last Refinery show of the year. This is the place where grassroots organizations come together to explore the best ways to make conservative messaging work so that we can grow and influence more people. We have this show every Tuesday at 8:30 Central. That's 9:30 JD's time over there on the East Coast, and 7:30 in Mountain Time, which is where Corey and Andy and Ryan are. And that would be 6:30 on the West Coast, where other people are.
Delbert's over there. He sometimes joins us.
Delbert's over there. He's just not with us today. He's in Oregon, one of the states that has a very low incidence of flu disease. So yay, Oregon. I saw that on a map today. I found it interesting. At any rate, you can watch our show at therefineryshow.com. From there, you can also find links to watch it later via podcast at Vigilant Liberty US or Stitcher or iTunes or several other places. There are links on the website, therefineryshow.com. At any rate, this last episode of the year, we wanted to make our resolutions for the new year. Nobody does that ever in the week between Christmas and New Year. I know it's like a radical thing to talk resolutions, right? You weren't expecting this. Oh, no, wait, this is so predictable. We're not going to give a top 10 list, a top 50 list, or any of that stuff, though. Not going to do it.
No best of.
No best of. We're just going to give our resolutions for the new year because 2015 can be a pretty exciting, wondrous, and fabulous new year for the conservative movement. I mean, we've accomplished so much this year, particularly electorally at all the state levels and at the federal level. There's so much that can be positive, that we can begin to turn around and change the momentum of the nation in a positive direction if we can be good winners. And that means being winners, recognizing that we are winners, and we do have not a mandate, but we do have something that could be a mandate. And we'll get to that because Andy wrote an excellent article about that. We'll talk about that later. I think the overarching thing for me in terms of resolution or reminder, motto, is be nice. And I always remember the scene in Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze telling his group of coolers that their job is not to fight back with the patrons. Their job is to be nice. And if somebody yells at them and says something stupid, be nice. If they call you a bad name, be nice. And that's what we need to do a lot more of. The Conservative Party, the Republican Party, conservatives in general, are not thought of as nice people. And if you look out on social media, the way we express ourselves, we don't express ourselves as very nice people. We disparage others. We complain a lot. We bitch, moan, and whine. We're not super nice, and we tend to be, not nice. And that doesn't make us the kind of group of people that anybody else wants to join.
Yeah, Andy.
Yeah, Andy. No, it's JD that's not a nice person. You're so mean. Look at that. I mean, look at that face. That's just a mean, cuddly face that you just want to pinch and squeeze. Yeah, JD is he's super nice. I don't know how he considers himself a conservative person because he's like anti-conservative.
Even shutting off my picture doesn't help because it's still my picture. Ah!
You still just look like a nice person. And he is. So we need to be more like JD.
Is he like Kung Fu Panda, cute and cuddly, plush and snuggly?
No!
I think in front of that green wall you come off that way. You really do.
I appreciate that, Andy. Thank you very much.
I don't want to.
But on the be nice thing, I don't know if people think that being nice means you're weak and a loser, or what it is. I get pushback when I get irritated with people or when I try to stop the complaints. It's like, well, you just don't understand how bad things are, or you just don't understand how serious it is. Well, yeah, I do understand how serious it is, and I want people to join my side. And in order to get them to join my side, we need to be the nice people that they want to hang out with. We need to be more alluring.
You know, if I could redefine I totally agree with that, by the way. If I could redefine...
That's because you're a smart person.
Exactly. And as you know, I fear all women. Okay.
Because you're a smart person.
Exactly. You know, let me redefine it just a touch. Rather than being nice, I want to show value. And what I mean is, the left only values people insofar as those people make choices that the left wants them to make. If we on the right really value liberty and choice and freedom, then we should value it in a person even if they choose against what we want, even if they make choices we don't like. You know, I always tell people I don't want my lifestyle to be your laws. Okay? And what I see too often in the right is we become too liberal. We let liberalism seep into the right because we start to lash out at people when we see them not choosing the way we want them to choose. Now, part of that can be frustration because they're, you know, purposefully being uninformed and they're shoving information away and just listening to Comedy Central or whatever. I get that. I get the frustration there. But do you value them does your value for somebody hinge on how much they agree with you? In that case, you don't value them at all. You only value agreement with you. And if you only value agreement with you, then the only one you value is you. We on the right need to start valuing these wonderful miracles we call people. Because on the left, they don't. They never will. They see people as something to be controlled, chess pieces on their board of life. The second we start showing people value and showing them, look, I want to share information with you, not run you over, not hate you the moment you disagree with me. The second we do that and show them value, we have an enormous leg up on the left because they'll never do that.
I think that's a really good point. And if we can remember to value the other person, that sort of automatically makes you be nice. Because when you value the assets that the other person has, even if you disagree with them, you're going to be nice to them and try to persuade them to agree with you on those things that you disagree on, or to at least work with you on other things. Because I find it more difficult to be mean to someone that I see as a fellow person that adds value. So I think you're right. Remembering that everybody has value, that they can contribute, and something that is beautiful and magical and wonderful about them makes me automatically be nice.
Well, and I think too that we need to distinguish between fighting hard and being milquetoast about things, or dialing back, because there might be a more positive way or a more engaging way to say something, does not mean that one is not still firing with both barrels. That
Exactly.
you can be a person who's using logic, reason, and also tactics to appeal to a person's and capture their attention, appeal to their sense of justice or their sense of fairness or their sense of rights and morality, whatever you want to appeal to. You can do those things without beating someone over the head in that sort of engagement. That does not necessarily mean that you're not fighting. It's a different way of saying something. It's a different way of getting to the same goal. And at the same time, it doesn't mean that, you know, calling names is completely off the table. It's just, so many of us start there. And I would prefer people to take a step back, and if they think someone doesn't look like they're fighting hard because they're not using that tough and pugilistic language, that it might be because they're taking a different approach, not because they're backing off of a strong position.
Well, I think that's a great point, because look, what I'm trying to clarify here, and by the way, I'm all for name calling. I'm a Christian. Jesus said, "You brood of vipers, you whitewashed tombs." Okay, look, name calling is simply a way to boil something down into a label to simplify. It's not evil in and of itself, but it can be lazy and weak. it can demonstrate weakness. It depends on how you use it. But here's the thing. I want them to understand the sin is not disagreeing with me. The sin is being corrupt. The sin is lying. The sin is using all these nasty blogging tactics that JD is so good at diagnosing and calling out. Well, seriously. When people use that stuff, do call it out, undercut them, expose them, embarrass them, and be tough. Let out that inner Ted Cruz, okay? Let it out, because that's great. I'm not saying to pussyfoot around. Well, once again, I got to go back to Jesus. Who was tougher and more in your face and combative and confrontive than Jesus Christ? So obviously, I can't have a problem with that. No, all I want to do is convey to people, I don't value you based on how much you agree with me, but I will definitely attack you when you use corrupt, dishonest tactics that stop the honest interaction of ideas rather than promote it.
And another thing to point out there is that when you're channeling your inner Ted Cruz doesn't make did not make his money by being a bad lawyer. He's quite talented at that, so he knows where the lines are, and he knows what is acceptable and what's not, and where to push it and where not to. So when you are going into attack mode, being sure to to go just far enough and not go over that line by, say, like calling Michelle Obama transsexual or doing that sort of stuff. Yeah, you're just hurting your own case. It makes no one, it doesn't aid your case in any way, shape, or form. You can be brutal about the policy. You can be brutal about the stuff that these people have done, but when you get into the schoolyard kind of calling names thing, that's when you're not making your point effectively, and that's when you're starting to, quite frankly, embarrass everyone on your side. And that's not good. It's not good to make those kind of claims.
See, I agree with JD. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not that good with words, and so I try to stay as far away from the line as I can because I don't know when I'm going to cross it. So I try to focus on attacking the policy, attacking the ideas, and try not to call the person names or attack the person at all. If I'm talking to someone, I might go as far as saying, clearly you've not read up on the topic. Here's a bunch of articles for you to read into because you're lacking a basic knowledge of the subject. I'm pointing out a fact. It might not be nice, but I'm not calling them names. I'm not really attacking them. I'm giving them opportunity to read and things like that. If you're going to attack someone, attack the people in charge of the policy. Like, you could attack Obama for being a communist, maybe. Don't just throw it out there because it's not going to work. But if you're talking about socialist healthcare and how that has worked in all these other, or how has not worked in all these other communist and socialist countries, and you say, in this case, he's a socialist, this is what socialist Germany did, this is what European socialist England did. In that context, sure, go ahead and call him a communist. It's true. But you're pointing out why, you're pointing out how, not just throwing out random names. You're not calling him a Kenyan or all those things that have no basis in fact to just make you look like an idiot.
Well, and along with that too, Ryan, I think that it's a great idea to attack their sources sometimes too. For instance, you guys all know I love to debate on fracking. And so many times people will Google, like they'll be debating and they'll Google something and they'll just pick little pieces out of articles from the Huffington Post or something like that, and then they'll paste that in and put their whole argument around it. And I've caught people doing that. And so when you can provide that link and say, oh, well, I just see that you just built your whole entire argument around this phrase, which is found on this link. Now would you like to perhaps share your own opinions? Or would you like to go with a reputable source that actually knows about fracking? And that's kind of fun, too, because it stops them in their tracks.
Well, and it tends to all kind of come back to taking the nicer approach. You're rather than just argue, you're ugly, no, you're ugly, back and forth, somebody will start out with an attack or a rant of some sort, and you pause for a moment, think for a moment. Your first reaction is going to be to feel something, and instead of feeling something and grabbing the keyboard, you feel something and you sit back and you think, is my response going to be something to defend myself against a perceived attack, or is my response going to be something that will grow the conservative movement, put conservatism in a better light, educate, inform, and delight the other person? Because if I am just defending myself against a perceived attack, consider your audience, consider your time, and consider whether it's worthwhile or not. Is the person you're attacking worth your effort? Are you being attacked by someone in a venue that nobody's reading because it's the 85th comment on a thread that has only 2 people commenting back and forth? Why are you... When I see nasty comments, and my immediate reaction is to defend myself, and by myself I mean Obamacare, the anti-Obamacare stuff, because I see those things as attacks on me. If it's an attack on conservatism, I immediately want to defend myself and my conservatism. But a lot of times I'll let that stuff drop, because the response, if I'm responding and feeling like I'm responding to an attack, I'm probably not going to be very effective, and it's probably not the best use of my time. I'd be better off going and reading a book or a detailed article and just wandering away, because not everybody is worth my response if it's a defensive kind of thing. But if I can slow down, take a deep breath, think through a couple of sentences worth of a response that can guide somebody in a better direction, then that's more along the lines of being nice, being helpful, being constructive, valuing other people's time as much as I value my own. And I think that, and frankly, most of my New Year's resolutions are geared more towards making me a happier person, because that's really my priority. And if I'm behaving in a nicer way and not being so defensive or angry or ranting all the time, if I'm being a nicer person, I'm a happier person, and it makes me have a happier year, and yay me. And the rest of y'all, I don't really care.
Okay, so when I'm looking at a thread, when I'm reading an article of something I don't really know much about, and to me, this is when we're talking about attacking and being nice and stuff, it's talking to the apolitical person, or the person who doesn't really know much about what we're talking about. Because as I'm reading through a thread, let's say on global warming, I haven't really studied it on my own. I've read a few little articles on it. I come across a thread and I see a few people arguing on it. And one says, you're just a climate change denier, you want everyone to die, and the whole world's going to burn, and science is settled, and there's a consensus, and you're wrong, and you're an idiot. And then the other person says, well, what about this article? And posts something. Well, what about this? And this person says this. And logically, if it was supposed, the climate models said that we'd be underwater by now, and CO2's risen above what they predicted, but temperatures have gone down, and the ice caps they said would be gone by now, and they've grown, and they're presenting facts and using logic and not name-calling, I'm far more likely to believe that person and research the things they're saying, because they're a lot calmer and more rational than the person who's just throwing out names and doesn't really provide any facts, doesn't provide any logic, they're just on the attack. And I think as people are coming through non-political threads and they see that type of attitude of one person just attacking the other side and name-calling, and then our side being nice, being logical, giving links, sourcing all of our material, they're going to be a lot more likely to listen to us than to the other side.
Ryan,
Are you saying that libtard is a low-value comment?
That word has been driving me crazy lately.
I got a good one. Use Libiot. Libiot.
Okay, I'm going to redirect this little conversation. The thing that Ryan was talking about too, in terms of the kind of things that you get, say specifically on global warming, you get people with the science is settled sort of comments, and everyone knows that there's global warming except for these few deniers. That is where we attack the premise. And the premise is different from the person advancing the premise. Most people that you're going to encounter who are dealing in subjects like this have maybe a couple of bookmarks in their files that have stats that fit their narrative, and they got them from somebody else. They haven't looked into it. They haven't done the research. But that narrative, that premise has been out there so long and so forcefully pushed by the media that it seems to stand as a fact. And so when we're attacking the premise, what we do is exactly what Ryan was talking about. Show that it's not a unanimous and universally known truth the way that, say, something like gravity would be. We all accept that gravity is a thing. It is instead an arguable point, and by attacking the premise, you're attacking the real focus, which is that narrative, not someone who's been fooled or someone who's been miseducated. That's a distinction, again, Ryan made very clear when he's talking about the facts, the links, more research, and something like that. And people who don't want to look at those things, it'll show up in a thread discussion like that. People who are closed-minded and who are just married to a narrative. And you can call them on that, and that's perfectly legitimate. And it separates it from, well, you're stupid because there's, this thing or that thing that goes on. Attacking that premise is very key to winning in any discussion like that.
One nice little tactic to use when they use something like that, it's already established, we have consensus, yada yada yada, is simply to say, okay, well that's, and even if they get nasty and talk down to you and use name calling and all that, I'll look at them and say, that's fair, we all do, that's fair, we all do that and call each other out. Let me ask you this. Everything you just said, was it designed to open up reasoned discussion or to cut it off? That puts them in a heck of a position, because you're letting them know, because they know everything they just said was designed to cut off conversation. And at that point, they're not going to want to cut it off because it's going to make them look even worse. So then you just say, okay, now let's say if all of this is established fact and I'm that wrong and I'm that way off and I'm that indefensible, well then that should make this discussion all the easier for you. So this should be a quickie. Let's dive right in. That's what I like to do.
And the added benefit of that is that it sets them up to go into the "you are stupid" situation, and that makes them look bad because, again, you're putting them into that position where they have to resort to name calling because, as we've said, for the most part, their backup on these subjects is going to be an inch deep. It's not going to be anything that's substantive. These guys are part of a pop culture movement more than they are actual ideologues that have real time spent on these issues. More certainly less time than we have spent on these issues. So chances are, if you're in one of these situations, you can call BS on people in that way, set them up to make them call you names, and then you get to present your facts and say, hey, I'm just following my facts. If that makes me stupid, I don't agree.
Well, and that's something we on the right need to do more of. When they overextend and say it's established, it's fact, it's this, it's that, and then do the name calling, we got to do some rhetorical judo. Use their momentum against them. They've now put themselves in a terrible spot, and you can say, did you just open up discussion or cut it off with that? If you cut it off, why? Are you afraid that, are you afraid of the other side? Or if my side is so absolutely indefensible, this should be easy for you. We on the right tend to, when somebody angers us, we lash back and justify everything they just did. Use it against them. Use their momentum against them, and you're going to have a lot more fun.
The left always overextends. It is as sure as the Jets will have a lousy record next year, the left will overextend.
Well, I think that's what we're seeing with Obamacare and so much of the rebellion against the progressivism is because they have done too much too fast, and the American people are going, wait, hold on, that's not quite what we thought it was going to be, and they keep pushing. Just Obama was thumped in November, and his response is going to be to push his agenda even further as a dictator, using the bureaucracy and the executive orders, because the rest of America disagrees with him. That means he has to double down on what he's doing, and that's a beautiful situation for us to be in, because they're digging their own graves. And I think what we're really clarifying is a message that we talk about so often here, and that is, it's be nice, but yeah, when they're on the ropes, keep punching. It means we can fight and we must fight, but we have to fight smart. We have to think before we act, and we have to use our brains much more than our emotions, but we have to be using our emotions as a fighting tactic, kind of, although that sounds really bad. I'm not expressing it very well. Sorry, my brain's not. I'm thinking it. I'm just not saying it right. Has happened so often. But express the fact that we do care about the left and about the middle and about the apolitical voter, and we value them. Use our words to express our emotions, but think first before we just react. Use express your emotions as an effective fighting tactic, which doesn't make it dishonest, doesn't make it manipulative. It just means we're being more purposeful in our actions and remembering what we're trying to accomplish and steering ourselves towards those goals all the time. Did that make any sense whatsoever?
I think it made a lot of sense. Andy, you have an article.
I wrote 3 this week. I was really.
You're a beast. You're man possessed.
I wrote a movie review on Unbroken. It was a crazy.
I have to say,
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Is to write more to compete against him.
What?
Thank you. Go ahead, Leslie. He didn't hear what you said. No, he didn't hear what you said.
Oh, one of my resolutions is to write more articles so I can compete against Andy.
Well, I got to warn you, it's going to take a lot of caffeine, because that's my secret weapon. And
the drug of choice. I love it.
It is the drug of choice. It's wonderful, and it's still legal. I don't know why. It shouldn't be.
You're in Colorado. Everything's legal, isn't it?
I know it is. And the latest article, that would be actually that's good. It's a New Year's resolution. It's my message to the GOP: go slow. Slow down. Take your time. The one thing we on the right do too often is we get so wound up, so angry by what Obama and the Democrats do, that the second we get some power, we want to run right in there and change it all back. And if our representatives don't change it all back immediately, they're a bunch of rhinos. We got to get them out of there. We expected results. Hey, I actually respect the desire to expect results. I think that's great. I don't want Republicans in Congress pussyfooting around on this stuff. Get tough. But please, please, go slow and enjoy the ride. If we try to, and the big example I use in the article is Obamacare. If we try to take Obamacare away all at once, then we're going to turn Obama into a murderer, into a good guy. And here's why. Obamacare is 2,700 pages of stuff. People can't get their minds around all that at once. And so if you take it away all at once, it's very easy for the left to cast that as we are taking things away from people. So instead, break it down into piece by delicious piece by delicious piece. Take your time. Every couple weeks, go after another part of it that's wildly unpopular. Advance a piece of legislation that shows how we would do it instead, and make people happy. Nobody likes the medical device tax. Advance a piece of legislation that takes that away. Nobody likes being penalized if they don't buy health insurance. Okay? Take that penalty away with another piece of legislation. And by the way, each time you do this, the left, the Democrats, are forced to have a vote on it. They've got to commit their votes to it. And Obama, if he vetoes it, is going to look horrendous. All right? And he's going to make our 2016 look even better. One thing after another, we need to pick it apart piece by piece by piece by piece. And that way, each time, on each piece, the American people will have the time to digest that piece, to understand, hey, yeah, we really don't like this, and we really want this gone. But if you take it away all at once because we're angry, if we act out of anger, we make them heroes. Don't do that. Take your time, enjoy the ride, and you're going to make them look horrible along the way.
And going slow is a way of fighting hard but fighting smart. Because if, using the Obamacare example, if we go piecemeal, then the discussion is about the Medicare device the medical device tax. The discussion is about the very granular issue, and we can talk about the pros and cons of it. If we were to start out with repeal all of Obamacare, then the discussion is about, do you want poor people to die in the streets? And we end up defending against those attacks. It's much better for us to deal with the individual issues and gain agreement with the majority of America on each one of those issues. And it's only at the end of the year that they realize, oh my gosh, I have agreed with every single bit of the repealing of the little Obamacare functions that they've done. Wow, maybe those conservatives were right on some of those things.
The great thing about it, too, is as we are doing piece by piece by piece, if the Republicans follow this plan, we will have ready talking points. We will have ready arguments in a very contained, compartmentalized way where, well, we're just talking about the medical device tax, or we are just talking about the individual mandate, and that narrows the amount of things we have to know at any one time to speak to an issue to a very manageable number. And that means more opportunities to sway people as they listen to a very refined and very narrow argument.
Well, and I think, too, it gives us a chance, like you're saying, Fishy, to provide an actual alternative solution that can work, that they can identify with and understand. Because when you say, well, health insurance just doesn't work, well, what are you going to put it in instead? That's too big. It's too big for my head. So why not take it piece by piece and say, well, instead of this, we're going to put in that. And then they'll say, oh, I like that idea. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, instead of forcing full-time workers to have to work part-time, we're going to not do that and put it back to the old way, to where, employers and employees could get together and decide how many hours they need. What an idea. And here's the beauty of this. Remember, the best way to hurt the left, and you see, you guys are all, remember, I'm the ex-leftist here, so I'm bitter. I actually like to hurt the left. You guys are more strategists. I actually am mean. I want to hurt them. Okay, and the reason is I want them to feel the pain that they've inflicted on the American people. I want them to feel every inch of this. And the way to hurt them, the way to really, really, really expose and damage them is always to expose control. Expose how they are trying to control other people. And the beauty of Obamacare is a gift, people. It's a gift. This thing is so loaded with control. And it's not just one big thing of control. Oh, no, 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 that's boring. It's one thing after another, after another, after another. It's gorgeous. It's wonderful. And we get to capitalize on every single one. And in each case show they're controlling, we're offering choice.
A veritable cornucopia of control.
It is. It's a cornucopia of control. That is perfect. And here's the thing. People hate being controlled. Offering choice and liberty is the only thing we on the right have to offer. We can't offer presents because we won't steal from other people to do it, because that takes away their choices. So if you're not going to call out control, you have completely disarmed yourself. If you're just going to get into a debate on the economic benefits of 2,700 pages of, and get off into the weeds in all these different little things, if you don't emphasize choice versus control every time and keep it simple for the American people, it's going to go all gray area on them. They're not going to be able to focus with you. Help them focus. Call out control, offer choice, and do it again and again. And please, please, Republicans, don't rush it. This is too good. Enjoy the buffet. Enjoy the feast.
Before we switch topics, I just want to point out or have everybody remind everybody about Acorn and how much better that was because it was strung out over a period of time and the way it was done. The way to keep, keeping the story in the headlines, keeping the story constantly, it's constantly going to be about Obamacare. It's constantly going to be about the stuff we don't like about Obamacare. Yes, I did say Acorn. I was talking. I'm sorry, we've got some issues with the feed, but yes, Acorn and the way that was attacked over a period of time. That's how we want to do this, because that's how. I mean, the left has a hard time. Its antibodies are very good at dealing with a single, issue, reacting to it, but having those little bursts of story continually coming out, it's very hard for them to deal with.
That is a fantastic point. The greatness about Acorn is it was something they wanted to go away and it wouldn't. And the longer they tried to make it not go away, the more it strung it out. I love that. And by the way, if we do it this way, piecemeal, the Democrats will be wanting Obamacare to be repealed to stop the bleeding. And they're not going to get it. We're going to be like, no, we don't want it all gone yet. But we really should veto. Let's let it go. No. This is too good. We got something else coming next week. Let it hurt, folks. Let it hurt. Don't act out of your anger and want everything right away. And we can do this on issue after issue after issue. We can do it on immigration. We can do it on everything. It's going to be a lot of fun. Don't rush it. As I said in immigration, one last thing. We should kill the funding right away for Obama's amnesty, okay? And be willing to weather a shutdown if it comes to that. But how about offering something positive? How about offering something, an America Works First proposal that ties immigration, ties these work permits and everything to our, our labor participation rate. We've got the lowest labor participation rate in 36 years, and we're bringing in all these illegals and making them legal, and they're taking the jobs. If you say, look, until the labor participation rate gets up to a certain point, a higher point, we're not going to, we can't approve more. And we're doing it for the American worker, then we're the hero.
Yeah, the article that Ryan just prompted reminded me about had a good, makes a good follow-up to what you were talking about when we were dealing with Obamacare and sort of the way the left has spent so much effort building these regulations and this structure that's so hard to undo. That is, across the board, one of the big problems that we have. One of our resolutions that I would love to see people really focus on this year is remember who the real enemy is and what we're fighting against. We have so many laws and so many rules and so many regulations that it makes it hard for people to understand how government works or to follow through and to know why they should be on one side of an issue or another. But as we've been saying for a long time, if we explain to people with stories, with narratives, with personal instances, we can move them in the direction that we need them to go. They can realize that they agree with us. And that's really the thing. We want to find the people who do agree with us already, but they just don't know it yet. They don't identify that yet. And so there's this great article in the Daily Beast that is called "The Red Tape is Strangling Good Samaritans," and I think this is a fabulous case of what we can focus on, how we can use these tales to reinforce that message that more laws are not the solution to things. Here's the beginning of this article, and it just breaks your heart. In January 2014, a lifelong D.C. Parks employee, Medrick Mills, collapsed while walking with his grown daughter. They were across the street from a fire station, close enough for the daughter to yell for help. Mills was lying on the sidewalk, dying right in front of people trained to save him. But they refused to cross the street to help because they told bystanders the rules required them instead to call 911. By the time the ambulance arrived, over 10 minutes later, it was too late. Mills died soon after arriving at the hospital. Take that in. The regulations said the firemen could not cross the street to save a life. They had to call 911. That is how we've penned ourselves in so much. Here's another story. Firemen in Alameda County refused in 2011 to rescue a suicidal man who had swum out to sea because they hadn't yet been recertified for land-based water rescues. Therefore, they explained to passersby it would be illegal for them to try to save the man's life. And when the fire chief was asked by a reporter what he would have done if it had been a drowning child, he said, well, if I was off duty, I would know what I would do. But I think you're asking me my on-duty response, and I would have to stay within our policies and procedures because that's what's required by our department to do. This is what this many laws, these many regulations, trying to find the case for everything. Instead of going with the principle of doing right, we're trying to legislate and regulate everything that happens. Real people are being harmed. Real people are dying because we've over-regulated, because we're afraid of lawsuits, because unions have gotten involved. That is the enemy. That mindset that says you need a law or a rule or a regulation for everything instead of people just doing what is right. Can they even still charge you for failing to stop and render aid anymore? I mean, if you do stop and render aid, how many risks are you taking? And yet people do it all the time because they're still have a value in them that it is more important to do the right thing than to worry about the risk of a lawsuit. Those are the real heroes in this country. Those are people we should be supporting. And those are the kind of laws and regulations we need to be showing people are doing great harm. And that is why big, massive, overarching, far-reaching government is so wrong.
Okay, so earlier, Andy mentioned that Obamacare is 2,700 pages long, 2,700 pages of law. I have read that it's around or over 20,000 pages of regulations and red tape and these type of things. So one of my key paragraphs from that story is modern law goes a giant step. Like, well, okay, the paragraph before this says that law is there to make it equal for everyone. Everyone plays by the same rules, and we have certain things that are not allowed, so everyone has a fair shot. People have to honor contracts, and this leaves it open to freedom for people to act and do what they please. So then it goes on to say modern law takes a giant step backwards. It often bars people from doing what's right. Law's proper role is now seen as instructing people how to make daily choices, or in other words, controlling them. Instead of providing the framework for freedom, law has replaced it, creating a legal minefield rather than an open field for free choice. And it's just like Andy always talks about. We're creating so many laws and regulations to tell people how to act and what they need to do in every little aspect of their lives that they don't have that free choice anymore. People don't think as much anymore. It's if someone's not breathing, what do? You call 911. Whereas if you're really thinking for yourself, maybe you go over and you start the Heimlich and have someone else do 911. Or like it's taking that thought process from people. It's taking the creativity, the ingenuity. It's taking the choice away, the things that make us human, and just turning us into thoughtless robots.
And it takes our initiative away, not just in our own personal lives and what we're doing. That it teaches people that you don't know better, that you can't decide for yourself. It cripples and hobbles us by saying the law, or those who know better, or those who are in that, we called it weeks ago, the clerisy, those people in that academic class, that the power brokers or whatever, those people know what's better for you. Those people know better how you can live your life, or should live your life, and will live your life if they have anything to say about it. It creates such self-doubt in us. Not necessarily conservatives who tend to buck this sort of thing and get irritated at it, but as a whole, the American population is less confident in themselves in situations far-reaching because they have to doubt themselves because of all these laws.
The other thing that I think it does is it dehumanizes us, because it's not our responsibility, it's somebody else's. I don't have to help somebody call 911. I mean, this last summer I saw somebody getting beat up in the middle of the street on the way to work, and that was exactly the lady's response when I turned around and said, "Has anybody called 911?" And she just rolled her eyes at me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, come on, we've got to do something. This poor person is getting pummeled in the middle of the street.
I have another example, and I think Fishy will know it, because she was the one who I saw it from, and my parents were shocked and astonished. There's a article on the Blaze that had a video of a kid rampaging through a dollar store, knocking all of this stuff on the floor, just having the worst kind of a temper tantrum, throwing items at people, assaulting them, and not a single person. It took I don't know, 10 minutes at least for somebody to actually do anything about it. It was amazing that that nothing happened. But then at the same time, as I'm watching this, there's a reason for that. If you were to go in and try and rectify that situation physically, if you were to touch that kid and drag him out of the store, what kind of what are you liable for? I mean, what happens then? Could you be called in for being for inappropriately abusing a minor? The list is miles long of the things that could possibly go wrong with that situation. If you're trying to remove this kid who's obviously, there are no parents around, there's nothing, and is destroying the store. This is not something that would have happened, I don't know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's not something that would happen, but now it's entirely understandable to me why no one would just go in and, stop the kid from wrecking the place instead of, putting him in the corner. I don't know. It's ridiculous. They called the cops on him.
JD talking about this kid and no one being able to touch him or stop him reminded me of another story from the article. In 2007, at Jamaica High School in Queens, teachers started calling 911 to get police to help them deal with disorderly students. This didn't look good in annual metrics on school safety, so the school imposed a rule that teachers could no longer call 911 until first getting approval from the principal's office. When a student, a 9th grader, had a stroke, the teacher dutifully complied and refused to call 911 until she could locate someone to approve it. The child almost died from the delay of an hour in seeking help. So the teachers would get in trouble for trying to punish these students. They couldn't touch them. They couldn't do anything to stop them. So what they did is they started calling 911. That would hopefully scare the kids enough. The police would come, maybe scare them, maybe they could do something about it. And so they made a rule you can't call 911 anymore. So someone's having a stroke in class and they can't touch her, they can't call 911, they have to wait an hour to find the principal, page him, get him down there, whatever, before they can call 911 to save a student. Like, it it should be common sense. In that case, you can break the rule and call 911, but they're programmed not to think. You have to just follow the rules.
And that common sense that you just hit on is so important. Whenever we are dealing with a policy that the left has implemented, or some plan that they have, or some mindset that they're exercising, if we can phrase our objections to it using lots of phrases like common sense, appealing to people that hopefully there's plenty of it left in the country, I imagine so, I'm hoping so. But if we can put things in terms of common sense and really build that feeling of, wow, those leftists, they're crazy. That's not common sense at all. Why would you do that? We'll have an easier time opening people up to our ideas and our solutions, because they will feel affirmed by, well, yeah, of course you would call 911 regardless of what the policy said. Of course you do that to save a life. And you put things in terms of common sense, it will resonate with far more people who are not political, but they hear you talking common sense and the other side talking control.
Common sense only occurs when people have the choice to use it. You know, I always laugh. I mean, the more you micromanage all the actions of a populace, the less common sense you're going to have, and in fact, the more untrained they will be to make wise choices. You know, I always laugh at people who look at Christians and say Christians are controlling, Christians are this, you know, the God of the Old Testament, the God of the Bible is this, you know, overwhelming, terrible, controlling. Okay, let's take a look at that. Right there, you guys have heard this before, right there in the book of Genesis, right away, what does he do? He says, he puts us in the garden with all these trees, and he says, freely you may eat from any tree in the garden. He didn't micromanage us like what happened in New York City. He didn't say, you must eat from tree 8 in row H, branch 4, piece of fruit number 12. He said, freely you may eat from any tree in the garden, but that your choices may have consequence, may matter, that they may have purpose. I'll put 2 trees in the middle, one of great reward, one of great consequence. Notice there's no micromanagement there. Just here, you may freely make choices, and you can have great consequence or great reward. What he was doing was freeing us to do good. Okay? This is what is great when you have parents who put together a solid set of rules for their kids and say, okay, this will have consequences, but outside of this, have at it. Feel free. We have to give more choice to people. We have to unleash people. Government doesn't do that.
Sorry, I have another paragraph from the article I want to share. I know we said we wouldn't do any favorite list for the year or anything, but I think this is my favorite article of the year, so I've got something else. There's a paragraph towards the end that teaches us where we need to focus. Right now, we're focused on the wrong things. We're focused on, Obamacare is bad or global warming is not happening. Those might be true, but the way to win people over is this. This is what the paragraph says. Senseless bureaucracy is part of what spawned the Tea Party. Just get government off our backs. But when conservatives get to power, they don't seem to do much about it. That's because they have attacked the goals of regulation, say environmental, instead of the true villain, the mindless bureaucratic blob that leaves no room for people to use their common sense in daily decisions. I think we can make a lot of inroads in places if we attack that bureaucratic blob and saying we don't need all these regulations, we don't need all these overseers, we want to be able to make choices, let the free market work, let people innovate, and then that will begin to make ground, and then we can make the changes that need to be changed. Then people will be able to see both sides of an argument and will be able to make a more educated decision.
It would make sense to, let people figure out what is workable for their neighborhoods, what they want to have in their area, the kind of businesses that they want to allow. Particularly, it makes no sense that you would have somebody in D.C. telling you that you can't frack in your neck of the woods when the fracking is good. It is absolutely insane to think that a couple people in cubicles in Washington, D.C. have the amount of control that they do on our daily lives. And that's something that people can relate to. They don't want to have somebody from the FDA tell them that they can't eat sprinkles, that their cookie dough might be, might possibly, shockingly, have some salmonella in it when they are tasting it when they're baking cookies. We don't need these people in DC to tell us stuff that we already know and stuff that we should have the sense to know. And we do have the sense to know, but for how long? Fishy's right there. She said in the chat that nobody hears us when we use terms like central planning. Of course not. And they don't, and they shouldn't, because central planning is like saying, private sector, or any of those sort of buzzwords that you hear us say a lot in the political class. We need to bring these things to terms that normal, everyday people care about, not just us political wonks.
Well, can we get more basic with them and simply ask, especially of young people, do you want the government to make other people live the way you want them to live? Nice and simple. You don't like having a micromanaging boss wherever you work, at a theater or wherever. Do you want the government to do that for you, though, the second your side wins? You don't want this person to make that much money. You don't want that person to be able to carry a gun. You don't want this person driving that kind of car or an SUV. You don't want that person. And you go on and on and on with the list. Young people especially have been conned into becoming control freaks through the hand of government. So rather than talking about central planning, and when we talk about that, we put it as a problem way off there in Washington. You can blame somebody else. Oh, yeah, we all hate that. No. What happens in Washington, you empowered with your vote. Do you want Washington to make others live like you? Do you want this pastor not to be able to say he disagrees with homosexuality? Do you want that? You see what I mean? I think we need to personalize it with people.
Absolutely. I think this is a good place to sort of talk about elitism. I think this might be a good area to delve into that resolution, because that's a lot of what we're talking about here, is the fact that these elitists in Washington decree what you can and cannot do. That's a huge thing, and people don't like the kind of elitism that DC is sort of exerting on us. Fishy, you wanted to jump in here?
Sorry. I didn't have my camera set up right. No, one of the things that a good resolution for us, in terms that kind of feeds into the one you're talking about, is everyone should be challenged this year in 2015. Make this the year that you learn to find that control element in every leftist policy, whatever it is. And Andy makes great points about this, and this is something that I learned, and I've studied so much Andy and Corey Payton, Party of Choice, that I could almost give a little bit of a presentation on it. I'm so impressed with everything they've ever done. You guys really have changed my way of thinking on so many things. But sending me into my brain and thinking about every political issue that I've ever talked about with anybody, and redefining it in my head and looking for that control element has made me much more eloquent on anything I'm talking about. It is such an easier thing to do, to find that control element, highlight it, show it to people, and then walk them through it. I don't need that list of talking points. You've talked about that so often, Andy, but it's so true. So I'm challenging everybody this year. Go find 10 issues, 5 issues, 2 issues, doesn't matter. And get in your mind, walk through it. Where is the control element? And then learn to use that language around choice versus control. Spend some time in that thought exercise so that you can articulate that better. And we will change the conversation in 2015 like nobody's business. Everyone should be doing that. Go through your head, find control, explain it, and get it down in your own head well enough to explain it, and then try it on everything else that you talk about. It is such a key. It opens up so many doors. We can't underline that enough. And while you're doing that, go to ThePartyOfChoice.com and learn how.
Nice plug. That's always good.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And back to the elitism thing. That's presenting our arguments not in a way that is elitist. It's not in a way that's calling people dumb or stupid for not understanding that free market economics is the best way to go about things. And that's what this resolution is. It's basically that we should be calling out elitism, but don't be elitist ourselves. And we fall into that trap so often, where and this goes back a little bit to the just be nice situation, is that we know that we're right. We are right on these issues. These are the correct things. This is how we should be behaving. These are the reforms that should be taking place, and we kind of just get stuck in that mode where we're right and you're wrong and you're dumb. So we play on that, and it makes us seem so puffed up and full of ourselves, and not willing to accept that there are other people in these discussions. It's a tough thing to sort of shake somebody who's been involved with a conservative elitist, to shake them of that perception of conservatives, and that's crippling. It's crippling to have people have to deal with like an uncle that's conservative or whatever, and talks down to people because they aren't the kind of conservative that they want. It's not how we should be behaving.
Well, and I think it ties with be nice and value other people. Poor people are not stupid, they're not selfish, and they're not lazy. Apolitical people are not stupid, they're not ignorant, they simply pay attention to other things. I mean, JD, you and Andy know that Felicia and I don't pay attention to sports. We are ignorant of sports. You don't make me feel stupid for it. I'm not stupid about sports. I am willfully ignorant. It's not something I pay attention to. It's not my area of interest. So what? I'm not going to participate in that conversation. But if you want to use a sports analogy, I can generally follow along. You respect me enough to help me to understand the things that I need to understand in your conversation. And we need to get much better about that. I see tons of commentary out there from people on our side that are dismissive and mean of people who are not part of their tribe. And that tribalism is perfectly understandable, but we need to make a little bit more effort at putting ourselves in the other person's shoes, understanding where they're coming from, and respecting and valuing their perspective and trying to work with them. If we're trying to expand the tent and grow the conservative movement and help people understand that they really are conservative, they're not going to listen to us if we're calling them and their friends and their family stupid. And it's even in little things like when we want to talk about how evil and bad bureaucracy is, don't compare bureaucrats to the worker at the DMV, because you know who works at the DMV? A lot of people that you want to convert to being conservative employees or conservative voters.
And
don't
not to mention
DMV people.
Not to mention people who have seen firsthand the kind of horrendous results bureaucracy.
They know. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they've seen it.
They are potential allies.
For sure. What you just said, Leslie, it has just inspired me to the next time that I see an objectivist just going all out, Atlas Shrugged in a thread, I'm going to start talking about Spider Y2 Banana because that's the same. There's no point in talking to somebody about route trees in football if they don't know it. You can't put it into context. Oh, the guy, he runs to the left and then he goes into the, that's what happens. You need to put these concepts into a form that people get.
And is there a safety doubling over the top toward the inside?
These are important, critical decisions that you have to make when you're running these plays.
Huh? What?
I know, right?
I'm giving you that head tilted quizzical look that my dog gives me.
And the thing is that we're not looking down on you because you don't know these stupid football things.
No, and we need to not look down on people who have not already decided to join our tribe. They're not bad people. They're just not here. They are potential members of our group.
They don't know they agree with us yet.
Exactly. Recruit them. Always be recruiting.
And thinking about how calling people stupid worked for Jonathan Gruber, I don't think that worked out so well. People reviled him. People who had no clue what was going on in that whole discussion, they caught the idea that he said the phrase, the stupidity of the American voter. That did not work out well for him. It is not going to work out well for us if we take that same tack. Even if we might say, oh man, people are so stupid, they pushed for this policy or they voted for that guy. You know, that beating someone over the head for a decision that they've made is going to make them hold on to it tighter. The reason it was so hard to pry people away from supporting Obama after 2008, even when things started to go really badly, is because they made an emotional and a personal investment in that vote, and then telling them they were stupid, or even if you saw video of people who were very uninformed, who were Obama voters, who went to the polls, maybe for the first time because something motivated them, you're not going to get them to take that vote back. And those are people, by the way, the first-time voters who voted for Obama, those are people who are still swayable. They're not entrenched in a mindset. But if you're going into them and talking about them and telling them they're stupid for what they did, instead of they were misinformed, they were tricked, they were, I guess, bamboozled or starstruck or whatever, coming at it from a different angle and saying you didn't have all the facts, now I'm going to help you get them. You didn't know. Nobody could foresee how badly things were going to go. There's just too much to track. I get it. That sort of thing is going to get you in the door a lot more with a person than calling them stupid. Well, and it's not that they're not lacking in information, but if you're going to make that about them and their habits, you're not going to gain that trust of them that makes you an informer of them and can better help them navigate.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we look at all of America and say, okay, finally the 8 years of captivity is over, and we're going to, we're going to fix all this, and he was horrible, he was this, he was that. Look, all they're going to do now, they take that as an attack upon them. They cast votes for him. This is why the incumbency is always so strong. People think it's because of your connections and your money. And that's part of it. The big reason is people have already, as you said, Felicia, they've already committed a vote. And they want that vote to be right. So rather than going to them and saying, Obama was horrible, finally we're going to fix this mistake, how about saying this? It's too bad it didn't work out. You know what? You know what frustrated me the most about the Obama presidency? He didn't empower all the people he said he was going to serve. He didn't empower you. He controlled you. He didn't give you more choices in life. He gave you fewer choices in life. I think, you see, I believe in you. I want you to have more choices. See how now I'm turning it to them and showing them I believe in you. And my disappointment in him is not that he did everything I didn't like, and now I've got to fix it all. my disappointment in him is that he didn't believe in you like I do.
Absolutely. I mean, putting this stuff into way, and this goes back to yet another one of our resolutions, which is don't disregard people. I mean, don't write people off. Think twice before you write people off. I mean, this is a huge thing. Why on earth would we try and limit ourselves when it comes to who it is that we want to reach out to? Why? Why would we? I mean, how does that help? How does it help us to say, 47%? We've already seen that it's a huge. I mean, it's a turnoff to people if we say stuff like that. And it's not just the people that we might not get, that we're probably not going to get. It's the other people, the people in the middle who say, really? So you're not going to try and get those people? So why should we pay attention? Maybe it's just that you care about your base so much that you don't really care about us. You just need us for our votes.
And definitely, if you don't go, you won't get them. If you ignore whole communities, there is no way you will get them. So anyone trying to build a bigger coalition or grow the movement can't automatically start trimming edges in big chunks based on demographics, based on race, based on region, anything like that. You're not going to get enough people to win that way. And so if we're not going, if we're not engaging at all, we are guaranteed not to gain those votes. It's just that simple.
Yeah, contrast yourself against Obama by showing you do believe in them. I believe that if you are given the choice to choose a school for your kids, rather than having them herded like cattle into a public education system, I believe if you're allowed to choose, I think you're going to make a great choice. And I think you're going to come up with some great ideas for your kids. I believe if you're allowed to choose how to defend yourself, I believe you're going to make good choices and get the right training, perhaps with firearm, perhaps with self-defense, to defend yourself. If you're given the freedom to do that, I believe when America is set free to drill for its own oil, that it's going to do it more cleanly than other countries around the world. I believe in you guys. I believe in us. You see, I wanted to believe in Obama. We all did. My problem with him is not that he's some evil person or that I don't like his wife or his kids or all this. I don't agree with that. My problem is this. I don't think he believes in you as much as I do. I could be wrong, but I do know this. He didn't unleash your choices. I want to.
That's pretty huge. I mean, how do you respond to that? There's no way to feel like Andy was being negative in how he presented that, compared to 90% of the other stuff out there. Maybe not 90, but there's so much aggressive and standoffish and not really helping language out there. We should be able to make a case to people of all stripes and varieties, because why would we? I mean, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we want to?
If I can mention it in one last place too, Obamacare. Remember, when we're picking it apart piece by piece by piece, at every point we're showing the American people not that we hate Barack Obama. It has nothing to do with him, but that we believe that you will make good choices when given the freedom to do so. That's why we want you to have a medical savings account. That's why we want you to be able to buy across state lines. That's why we want you to, you see what I mean? That's why we want all these controls that are on you taken away, because we believe you'll make better choices.
Yes, and one of those better choices is making sure that we aren't ranting all the time, which is something that we have a tendency to do. We waste a lot of those rants, and when people see those just long screeds, a lot of the time it turns them off, because we do it about everything. If you look at conservative media, 90% of the stuff that gets hits, again, I'm going with these generalizations, 90% of stuff, are rants. I'm upset and here's why, and we do this a lot. I don't know if it's I don't get anything from it anymore. I'm pretty much at the point where I don't have any more outrage. I want to try and focus it on getting stuff done instead of being just angry about it. Personally, maybe that's just me.
I have plenty of outrage still left. I mean, I'm a redhead. There's tons of outrage, and when I express it, wow. But I'm trying to learn to choose my battles, choose what is worthwhile ranting about, slowing myself down and thinking through because writing out a rant is the easiest thing in the world, and that's why there are so many out there. So many blog posts are rants because they're easy to write and they are clickbait and they're money makers, and it makes you popular. I mean, everybody loves a good rant, and look at how so-and-so destroyed so-and-so, and you can tweet about it, and then maybe you'll get in twitchy about it, and it's awesome because you're just being all emotive, and it's great. But it's not only is it pointless, it's damaging. It's damaging to the person who is ranting all of the time because they just become a negative, hateful kind of person. And maybe they aren't, but if that's all they are on social media, that's all they are to me. That's all they are to the people who only know them via social media. There are people who have chosen to have ranty, angry personas as their radio or blog or social media persona, and trust me, if you really knew him, it's not how he really is. He's just a teddy bear. Well, I don't care that you say that because I have no evidence of that. We need to remember to be who we are, and who we are is sometimes ranty and sometimes angry, but actually most of the time, most of us are nice and happy, joyful, encouraged, thoughtful, encouraging, teaching, learning, growing, wanting to make the world a better place kind of people. And if we express that more, then we'll get more of that in the world, I think. And it makes us more enjoyable to be around, I think. And sure, I know some of my great, most thoughtful posts have had maybe 1 or 2 plus ones, thanks JD, and no forwards and no comments other than maybe a spam person, whereas somebody posting a rant gets a ton of pluses and a ton of forwards and attaboys and all that kind of stuff. It kind of hurts my feelings every now and then. I want to post a rant just to see if I can get some reaction, but you know what? That's just not who I want to be anymore. And when I do rant, I have a private community for that.
Right. Well, and what I've been seeing on social media are a couple of things. First of all, we only have a limited amount of emotional capital that we can spend. If you're constantly ranting and angry about everything that you see, from global warming to Obama wearing a tiara in a picture with a bunch of little girls, people are past your posts, and they're not even going to pay any attention to you. They're just going to be like, oh, Corey's just having a temper tantrum again. And the biggest problem with that is that, first of all, you are going to have you're going to get a few few people following you who are going to jump on board and post along with you. I've seen this happen in some groups that I follow. There's these little cliques of people who are chronic complainers. But this is what the real problem is. Aside from the fact that people start to tune you out, there are a lot of people out there who are working 60 hours a week. They're conservative, they're Republican, they're concerned, but they do not have energy to read your anger. They want to be updated. They want to hear what you're talking about. They want to be following the news and learning what's going on, and maybe even equipping themselves. But it's so exhausting to them that they just tune you out. And I'm not just putting this out there as a theory, we had lunch with some really good friends of ours this summer, and that's exactly what she told us. She said, I am concerned. I don't like the direction that our country is going. I am a Republican, and I vote. She goes, I wish I could be more involved, but I am putting in 60 or 70 hours a week. And she said, quite frankly, there's so much anger out there. I don't have time to sort through it all. I want to learn, but I don't have anything left. And so then, what's really sad in all of this, aside from the fact that you're turning off people who are sincerely concerned, is that you're wasting your good rants. Because when you have something really good and really insightful that you want to say, it's too late. People are already going past. People are already tuning you out.
I'm working 70 hours a week, and you want to talk to me about Obama wearing a tiara? That's the thing you want to talk to me about, is about Obama wearing a tiara in a cute little photo? That's what that's the thing. The country is going to hell, and the thing that you want to talk to me about is Barack Obama in a tiara.
Unless he wore the tiara with the girls 18 trillion times, and each picture costs $1 that we didn't have, I really don't care. You see what I mean? We're 18 trillion in debt, and people care about Obama in a tiara. I thought it looked cute.
Yeah, and here these poor people, their health insurance costs are skyrocketing. They're losing their doctors. They can't afford their electricity. Whatever it is, things that are really affecting them, and we're being petty about things like that. Is it any wonder that we're having a hard time drawing others to our cause?
The old word gravitas comes to mind. Petty people have no gravitas. They have no street cred. Nobody cares what they have to say.
Well, and if you can't tie your rant to something that is of future importance, worth having. I gave some consideration to making commentary about the golf course wedding cancellation thing, because that really did irritate me. But the bottom line on that is, it's Obama being thoughtless and his staff being thoughtless as a result, or maybe Obama is not thoughtless, it's just that his staff is, and they got that idea from so-and-so through the years. But this is not news. There's nothing surprising about it, and there's nothing to be done about it. Learning more about Obama and his staff being self-involved doesn't do anything. There's nothing to do with that information. So it would have been just a useless, pointless rant. Oh, here he goes again. Here's just another bad thing. Well, so what? There was nothing to be gained from that, so you let it slide. There's no point.
And where is the connection, the personal connection that a person has to a story about Obama wearing a tiara with a bunch of little girls, which probably made their day? Where is the personal connection to a person that you want to sway in that story? Is there one? Now, you can talk about, say, Michelle Obama and the school lunch policies and what they're all doing with those things. People resonate with that. There's a personal connection to having your kids sent to school and maybe having the school say they can't bring a lunch anymore because the government says. People get irate about that. Did you attack Michelle Obama? No. You attacked the policies. People can get an understanding of these issues when you put them in a personal, connectable way. But when you're just mocking to mock or to be ridiculing someone, ridicule is a powerful weapon indeed. But if you're ridiculing a person, is that going to resonate personally with someone? Is it going to touch their life and let them see the point at which the ridiculed person is controlling them or harming them or doing something that's detrimental to them? Or is it just going to have a general ill feeling ginned up about that person. And that is the thing, key to me. Can you find a personal way to connect this to another person by telling that story? The article we shared about the whole red tape business, everyone can imagine what it would be like to be across the street from a fire station and have the firemen not able to cross the street to help. That's powerful. That's a story that resonates with people.
And that would be
Obama,
a purposeful rant. That would be, you know, ranting about that. If you had personal experience with it, that would be a good rant to have, because it does have a tie to policy, emotion, but it's the emotion of a personal connection that then ties back to a policy, rather than the emotion of people and like, dislike, just express some anger and move on. It gives you a hook to then say, we're talking about government regulations and the awfulness of those, and I'm angry about that, and you can be angry with me, and then we can move forward and do something positive with it. It's a purposeful rant.
And what a waste. Here again, Michelle Obama gives us this glorious gift, this wonderful gift to the right. She's controlling what our kids eat and taking away choices. Okay? She's controlling and taking away choices. In baseball terms, she's throwing this pitch right down the middle and slow. All you got to do is swing away. But if you're too busy ripping on her husband for his tiara, or ripping on her for her looks, which I don't understand. I think she's very pretty. But, you know, when you do that, you've killed all your capital, like Corey says. Now nobody wants to listen to you. And so when she does throw that pitch down the middle, you're not even up to the plate. You can't even take the swing.
right. And what I was watching a clip from Jimmy Fallon where he did his show, Ew, with Michelle Obama and Will Ferrell, and they were talking about food, and kale chips were involved, and it was really gross. But the people that are on our side, that are already in our camp, that are massive conservatives, that are faithful voters, that get that sort of thing, they're going to see that, and they're going to be, oh gosh, Michelle Obama pushing her agenda again. But what do the majority of people who are not political, who have not been following all that, what do they see? They see Michelle Obama hanging out with Jimmy Fallon and Will Ferrell, being cool and talking about lunch and food and better alternatives and healthy choices and whatever. And they don't see things the way we do. If we're arguing about, oh my gosh, Michelle Obama went on Jimmy Fallon, and that's where it stops, then you're not contributing anything, and the majority of people are not hearing you because they thought that was kind of cute. And I will admit, that skit was kind of cute. Yes, it was pushing an agenda, but it was well done. She held up her end, on a comedy show. It was well executed. And the majority of people are walking away looking at that saying, Michelle's got a sense of humor, and so does Jimmy Fallon, and everything looks cool. What are the conservatives upset about? When you tie it to something personal like that. And the hashtag that we had started about, JD's got it up on the screen for those watching, the hashtag that we talked about last week, coming up about casting these people as bullies. Bullies be like is kind of what we sort of settled on. If there's a better one, people please bring it in. But he's got a picture of Michelle Obama with a school lunch, bunch of kids, and bullies be like, you'll eat what I tell you to eat. That's a great message, very simple, easy to spread.
Yeah, and I mean, what else are you going to say? It's pretty much, how do you dispute that? How do you dispute that that's the situation? It's pretty much obvious, and there's tons of evidence to support it. So what are they going to do? I mean, yeah, bullies be like, you'll eat what I tell you to eat.
Bullies be like, you don't get any sprinkles on your donuts.
We have one of those too, but I don't have it queued up, so sorry. Oh well, that was a missed opportunity, but it is what it is. let's see. What do we have? I think that also sort of falls under remember your audience too, huh? Since we're here and we're burning through these resolutions.
Yeah.
Remember your audience is kind of a big deal regardless of who you're talking to. Funny enough, and like with what we're talking about here, with the refinery, who our audience is, we know who our audience is. Our audience is not a random person coming off the street to check out some fun, awesome show about conservative. No, that's not who our audience is. Our audience is people who are tired of being on the rage treadmill. The people who actually want to get stuff done and not just talk about getting stuff done and be upset. We're really upset and no, we actually want to get things done. We want to be successful and we want to bring more success to the party as a whole. But remembering who it is you're talking to at all times is extremely important. It goes back to the rant situation. You don't want to be ranting in front of people that would be obviously turned off by it. Leslie said that she's got a place to post her rants in a safe environment, in a place where you're not going to be causing extra harm to your cause. That's important, and that's good to have. To have the sort of secure spot to talk about these things. Maybe if you're cool and you get on the double secret probation list, you can find the rant spot that Leslie's talking about. But these are important discussions to have about who you're trying to communicate with.
Hey,
Another thing, I wanted to just jump in here. Whenever you are talking in a thread with somebody, and maybe you're debating a liberal, maybe you're just having regular conversation about an issue, there are tons of people who can potentially see what you're doing, who might be apolitical, but something might have caught their eye. Or maybe the way that, say, Facebook is structured, your comment will show up in their feed even though they're not following the thread. And onlookers that you will never know saw that. And so it's when you're debating a liberal, you're not trying to convert the liberal, you're trying to influence the audience watching, the people in the gallery. When you're having a conversation that's internal and you put that in an internal place, then you can be more free about how to express yourself, I think, and maybe use language that you wouldn't want to use in a broader term. It's a situational awareness thing, and making sure that what you're doing is not causing harm, because your higher value is winning and communicating effectively, which is higher than I'm going to emote, I'm going to vent, I'm going to say what I want to say, and consequences be damned.
Okay, so Fishy just laid out all the right ways to do it. And I'm serious. That is positive. That is uplifting. That is exciting. That's a conservatism that we wake up in the morning wanting to be part of. I want to go back for a second and ask JD to spend a few moments, if he would, describing the term the rage treadmill. That was wonderful. Did you come up with that, or is that like you see it somewhere? Because if there is one thing that is burning out and really killing the productivity of the conservative movement, holding it back, it's what you just described.
Yeah, actually, that was me, as far as I'm aware. Fishy and I were talking about this yesterday, not yesterday. I don't remember when it was. We were talking about this, and talking about the resolutions, particularly the next couple that we'll be hitting on, and it sort of the visual came to me that this is what happens. You have activists, you have people who want to do stuff to get stuff done, but they get sort of drawn into the perpetual outrage mode, and what happens is that it's burning hard every second, and you're outraged, you're really ticked off. We have to get these bums out, throw out these bums. There's a lot of bums being mentioned, and schmucks and other things, and you can't sustain yourself on that. you can't. You just burn out. It's not going to. You can't go. You're not achieving anything. You're not getting anywhere. All you're doing is you're being perpetually ornery. That it's not healthy. It's not helpful. And what do you have? What can you show for your work after X amount of time? What are you actually? What tangible change have you gotten? It's very, very hard to see anything, and at that point you're really disheartened because you've been putting your heart and soul into this. You hate the left. You hate these liberals. You've been doing what the people that you trust in the media have been saying to do. You're angry. You're outraged. You're ready to start fights. Ready to get into this. Call out these libtards for who they are. These what's the demo rats? Democrats. That's what it is. I'm sorry. I was trying to find the. I knew there was rats in there somewhere. I had to find it. But that's it. And yeah, please go, Corey.
Just going along with what you're saying, if we as die-hard conservative political junkies get exhausted by this, how do people who are like our friend who want to be involved but don't have the time, or people who are just casually interested, how is that going to affect them?
It's going to destroy. I mean, any interest that they might have evaporates.
Yeah, they're going to walk into that meeting and they're going to be like, whoa, where did these people come from? What am I doing here? These people are scary. And the other thing that you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of high turnover in those types of group meetings. Yeah, you might be averaging 70 people per meeting, but when 55 to 60 of them are new every single month, that tells you maybe there's something going on that you're just not realizing.
Yeah, I mean, look, we get to the point where very quickly with a meeting, we don't want to go back. If that's all it becomes is rage against the machine, rage against the leadership, rage against this, we don't want to go back. My goodness. And I like rage. I mean, I'm into it. I rage all the time, and it burns me out. So what's it doing with the average person who is not, politically inclined all the time like me? We must be driving them away by the millions.
And you were talking about burnout, Corey. It's so true. It's exhausting, but it's also breeding hopelessness. And people who don't believe that there's a way to fix things will give up. And we don't need that. We need people focused on what we can do. We're not going to be able to change everything, and we're certainly not going to be able to change everything right away. But we don't want to suck the very little bit of energy that most people who've been on this ride for years now have left. We need them to be able to access things, to find things that they can do, actions they can take, so that they get some victories, so that they continue to be able to be involved. If you suck the energy and the life and the will out of them, they will go home and they will not come back.
And we can't afford to lose anybody. We cannot afford that. And I know brass alone. Peter Ream, who was on last week, can attest to this. He had this happen to him where he was burnt out. He couldn't participate in politics for a long time because, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, it is so incredibly disheartening to have this kind of crap pile up and you can't do anything. It's just it's awful. And the outrage, it poisons you. It's not helpful. It doesn't accomplish anything, and it just makes you look like an angry person. You play into the liberal stereotype.
Yeah, and I think the other thing it does, because we've been on this side of it too, is it really disheartens your leaders. We were district captains back in 2012, and no matter what decision we made, there was always a critic. And some of them were not very nice about it. And so when you've got both sides of it, when you're constantly criticizing people who are trying to make changes and who are trying to make things better, and you're not offering positive alternatives, that's another way that we can really suck the life out of a movement.
Oh, absolutely. As a leader who has faced all manner of frustration and irritation and outrage from people over any number of things that I've said or done, if people, just knew your heart, they would know that you're trying to help. And very few people do, in fact, want to lead. And so people thrust in that position, it's very, very difficult to take that in on a regular basis and be called all sorts of, yes, rhino corn, thank you, JD, to be called all sorts of names and have all sorts of attacks against them. If I am a leader and I'm helping to fight for your freedom and you have nothing positive to say or no way to help me, you are going to suck the very will to fight out of me. I'm going to let you go do you, and I'm going to go do me.
And that's key. You can't change other people, and that's one of the things I want to remind myself of throughout 2015. I can only change me and how I act and behave and react. And that means that I can't change the people who are negative or who are the ranters. I can simply ignore them, which is because I can't change them, so arguing against them and trying to convince them to not be that way is going to be a lot less effective than just ignoring them and being what I want to be. And if they want to follow and copy and be that same way, great, because maybe they discover that I'm very successful at it. That would be awesome. Really awesome. Just so you know, I think that would be awesome. Anyway, but all I can do is I can put the positive stuff out there and ignore the negative stuff rather than saying, no, you can't put this negative stuff here or trying to take it away. I can just smother it with more positive stuff and be the positive, interesting, informative, educational resource that people have, and not get so bogged down in paying attention to other people and their negativity. Because there are always going to be negative people out there and ranters. And they are not the majority of the population. They aren't people that I have to pay attention to. I can just walk on by.
And they're highly principled. However, their principles are not really winning us anything. They're not getting us in any seats. They're not. They're rants. No. But winning is something that we need to do if we want to succeed with those principles. So winning itself is a principle, which is another one of our resolutions. So that, yeah, winning is a principle.
If you are not if somebody is not willing to, how do I put this? One thing that really frustrates me a lot with a lot of conservatives is they separate themselves from any chance of winning. They either isolate themselves in third parties or they stay and only try to divide. Look, it's just like with gravity. Gravity is a principle. It's a natural law also. But I mean, you cannot do anything in life while ignoring gravity and saying that doesn't matter. All right? Gravity is always going to matter. Winning in politics is gravity. If you don't win, you can't advance any of the agenda you say you believe in. So you can't say, I don't care if I win, I'm only going to be principled. If you say that, you're not being principled. You must win. You must find ways to win. You must at least try to win. If you don't try to win, you're not principled. Because you're saying flat out, I want all my principles to become nothing but slogans that are put up on a wall somewhere. Well, then you must not believe in them much. Conservatives have to start they need to start understanding, look, we can only win because the left is so numerous. There are so many Democrats. We can only win if we work together. And we can't work together if we each demand full agreement with us, with each one of us. Therefore, we must find a way to win together, collectively. If you do not believe in the principle of winning, you don't believe in principle. because you won't advance any.
Absolutely not. Political cover.
You mean intellectual cover, or?
I'm sorry, intellectual cover. That's where we were supposed to be going with that. Sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. I mean, that's a different direction. We can go there. That's talking about the that's talking basically about liberals. I wrote an article called Intellectual Cover, and what I was doing was, a lot of people, when we saw the 2 cops who got killed in New York, a lot of people handled it a lot of different ways. Some people said, well, it was the killer, his fault, nobody else was to blame at all in any way, shape, or form. Okay, and it's not to blame anybody else. Well, I basically agree with that. As a conservative, I only feel that the person who pulled the trigger is to blame. I like to hold people accountable for their decisions and not take the blame off them and put it on those who might influence them. However, that doesn't mean that we look at those who influence them and let them off the hook. I'm not going to put them in jail. I'm not going to hold them accountable for the crime, but I am going to call them out. See, here's my big problem. When you disrupt the left, you are disrupting a very dangerous group. Virtually all killing comes from the left. It's true. Okay, be it leftist regimes around the world, be it street crime, be it even killers at high schools and stuff. How many of them are NRA or Tea Party members? The simple fact is, drug wars and all this kind of stuff. Virtually all killing is done. The left is a very dangerous group. I know. I come from the left, and the reason is they believe in controlling people's lives. And when you believe in controlling people's lives, you devalue them. People become less important. Your agenda becomes more important than people. You don't mind if people have to get erased for your agenda. Now, do all leftists go to that extreme? Of course not. Okay? But the left itself is a cauldron. Boiling over, it's dangerous. And when I look at people like the president, like our attorney general, basically telling the cops they've got to watch themselves and be careful and use restraint. What are they saying? They're saying that to some degree or another, the cops are the problem with what happened in Ferguson. The cops are the problem. No, they're not. People resisting arrest and attacking cops is the problem. I'm not saying, and when I say that, I don't say that cops are all perfect. Of course not. They're people. But look at the pot that these people are stirring. They're providing intellectual cover. They can say, well, I'm not involved, and they can even, and they on the left can even say, I'm not involved, and I even tell them, hey, be peaceful in your protests and all this. Yeah, but then you go in and tell them they're justified in their anger. And at least in the case of Ferguson, they were not justified in their anger. They were wrong. And you were telling cops in Ferguson to show restraint because what they might do. And then you wonder why people feel okay about rampaging and burning down buildings. And the mayor of New York wonders why all these cops turn their backs on him. Hey, they were right to do so. He was telling his son to be worried if he reached for his cell phone in his pocket because that might provoke a cop. And that might be dangerous around police because his son is biracial. It's time, and I'll finish with this. It is time we start calling out these leftist leaders. And I don't care if they say be peaceful in your protests. Okay? It is time we start calling them out for adding validity to the protests at all. Because when they do that, they are stirring a very dangerous pot, a boiling cauldron, because they are stirring the left. And the left is violent. And the left is where a lot of killing comes from. And they are giving validity to things that have no validity. And because of that, I will call them out. And I think we need to do it more.
Absolutely. I think that's something that we definitely are seeing more. But again, it's also about being measured and remembering how to do it. And that's something that we've already discussed that we need to get better at. But certainly these people need to be called out. Um, Another thing, sort of in that line of thinking, is, we've talked about hands up, don't shoot. We've talked about all of that, the kind of misleading messages, the kind of stuff that sort of swirls in the aether, and people get upset about it, and the next thing you know, you see LeBron James having this on a T-shirt, whatever, or you see the Rams doing the hands up, don't shoot. This does happen on the right. It happens frequently, and it leads us to our next New Year's resolution: source everything, please. This is just something that way too often. I know we've beat this horse just so much here on the Refinery, but make sure that you track back any story that you find, any story that gets shared to you on Facebook, anything that pops up in your feed. Before you share it, click on it, find out what it actually has to say. If it says, naval officer or Navy general, whatever, Navy admiral, creating a coup, starting a coup to overthrow Obama, chances are that's not a real story. Just, maybe it might not be a real story. Please go through and make sure that if it says, as especially constantly talks about, as we all know, or stuff that sort of alludes to a rumor or anything, make sure that you check these things out, because when you share these stories and they're not true, and people click on them and there's a bogus story there that has nothing to do with the title, or a bogus story in general, sharing stuff from the Daily Current or from any of the other parody sites, and they're so tricky. It's tough to figure out what is a parody site and what's not. You need to go that extra mile and do it and find it, because it is so devastating. And what we said before about the rage treadmill, this is another thing. It becomes so incredibly hard to overcome these stories. Obama is putting people in FEMA camps. Obama is taking away our gun rights. Obama is whatever. Going through all of those stories. Please source before you start sharing. Source before you start outraging, because it is not helpful. It is hurtful, and it just drives me personally crazy. So for my own personal sanity, please source your articles before you share them.
Well, and don't fall into the trap that so much of the media has fallen into this year. In fact, there were a couple of articles about how the story of the year is how the media became less about the facts and more about the narrative, where it seems that the journalism industry has decided to prefer any kind of story that will advance a narrative, and whether the story is true or not becomes irrelevant. And even if the facts of the story in the first 24 hours, they will continue to say, well, that's okay, because there's something similar to it, and it really matters that we need to continue talking about the conversation. The whole thing started with the fake but accurate Texas National Guard story from Dan Rather, and it's gotten so very much worse. I've seen some folks on our side do it when they advance a story that is accidentally from one of those parody sites, and rather than correcting their initial post, they'll say, oh, well, I guess so, but it's probably true somewhere, and it's really important to discuss this issue anyway. You know what? Really, just edit your post and say, sorry, this was a mistake, and change the conversation and start over. Delete your post. Because you're representing yourself, and conservatism to all the people who read you. When you're on social media, you are an author. And are you going to waste the credibility of your authorship by perpetuating myths, falsehoods, and irresponsible journalism? Because you're a journalist.
Rolling Stone. Don't be that guy.
Yeah. Rolling Stone, absolutely. And I love how, Ryan, on our private chat here, when you were talking about Daily Current and some of the spoof satire sites, Ryan wanted to make sure that we all understood Daily Current, The Onion, MSNBC. These are satire sites that really should not be taken with any credibility because it's a spoof. They're not real journalists.
So can we take I mean, what do you do? I a lot of the time will point out some of those sites like MSNBC if they have no credibility left. So when someone cites them, I really will point it out. Like, look, they have been caught in so many lies. ABC News, same thing. They've been caught in so many lies. You can't really use that as a source. Find a new source. Now, is that?
I wouldn't do that because it makes you seem super biased. It makes you it puts you almost in the same sphere as the faux news guys.
Yeah,
that's
true.
kind of what I'm thinking.
So what I would do.
But making fun of MSNBC is good times, y'all. It's good times.
Yeah, absolutely. What I would
really
do is
no
if there was something objectionable in the article itself, by all means point that out, and make sure that you mention how the article is itself misleading. So that's something to keep in mind.
But yeah, don't get into the whole genetic logical fallacy of you're destroyed because of the source. That's just silly. I was just making fun of MSNBC, as was Ryan.
Exactly.
We knew they're not a satire site. The Onion really is, though.
As is the Daily Current.
Yes.
Now, I mean, we're close to the end of the show. I want to. We've got two more. We've got two final resolutions to get to, and they're very much related. And these are things that I've just been so aggravated with since before the Cromnibus, but certainly since the outrage because of the Cromnibus. We talk about Trey Gowdy, people shouting and screaming about Trey Gowdy needing to be primaried. Of course, he needs to be primaried because he voted for the Cromnibus. Yeah, we should really get on that. Primary Trey Gowdy. Making idle threats is a huge peeve of mine on the right, and we do it all of the time. Mark Levin, I'm an inch away from leaving the Republican Party. Really? You're an inch away from leaving the Republican Party? Okay. Yeah, great. Thanks. I should be so lucky. And I'm sorry. I do not speak for the Refinery. This is my own personal opinion. I do not speak for Free Radical Network with these comments. This is my own personal opinion on this. And yeah. And no, Mark Levin has done some great stuff for us and has a very engaged group of listeners.
The look on your face when you said engaged. People, go check out the YouTube.
Sorry. We tend to make a lot of these threats. Oh, if Boehner's the Speaker of the House again, I'm going to, I don't know. Oh, these people need to be primaried. And it's not just from people who are legitimately pissed off about Boehner or about whoever, McConnell. That's great. I don't have a problem with you being pissed off about Boehner, McConnell, or whoever. Please be annoyed, be angry, be irate. I don't mind that. But make sure that you follow through with what you're talking about. If you aren't, if it's primary season and Boehner's up for re-election, and you aren't moving yourself over to Ohio, to whatever orange godforsaken district that Boehner comes from, if you aren't donating money to whoever it is that's running against John Boehner, if there is anyone who's running against John Boehner, because John Boehner got to where he is not by being a bad politician. He's been reelected a bunch of times. It's not a fluke. I'm sorry, I hate to tell you this. This happened with Eric Cantor. They can be unseated. It's not a thing that we just are cursed to deal with for the rest of eternity. You can primary John Boehner. You can make threats to primary John Boehner. Just follow through with it.
And there are fulcrums that you can use and levers that you can use to move anybody. No one is entrenched so deeply that they cannot be removed, but it must be done strategically. Cantor didn't go simply because the country was upset with him. Cantor had strategic mistakes in his district that people made him pay for. And go there, incite that, deal with that, make sure you have a better replacement, that you're getting an upgrade, and that you're not just going to replace him with the first name that comes along. But it is entirely possible to do it if it's done strategically. What we see are people emoting and ranting and being upset and not having a productive, again, we're back to that, not having a productive outlet for that. Go find a productive outlet. Go find a way to help someone. Vet who you're going to go up against them intensely, though, because they are going to get chopped up and spit out by experience and the incumbency and the team that's there. If you're going to take on someone, go all the way and do it professionally and do it well. And it's not just that. It's all the threats that we tend to make. We talk about what we'll do, whether we'll stay home or whatever. Let's not shoot ourselves in the foot. Let's be strategic. And if you have 25 congressmen or 10 senators that need to go, probably attacking them all at the same time is a dilution of your resources. Maybe you go after just 2 or 4, and then you go after the next ones, and you're strategic about it. That's a better way to get what you eventually want. It just takes time, and people get burned out, and I get that, and it's a long game. And I apologize to people. We're going to be in this battle for decades. We're not turning this around in 2 years, 4 years, 6 years in the way that we want it to. Now, if we do our part, we can certainly hasten that along a lot. But we have to be smart, we have to prepare the ground, and we have to make threats that we can follow through on and put away the threats that we're not exactly prepared to do anything about.
Well, go ahead, JD.
No, I was just going to reiterate that it's great and fine to say that you want to primary Boehner. You can't primary him today. You can't primary him tomorrow. You can't primary him next week. There's a point to primary him. We're not there yet. So, outrage, great, all that stuff. Put it in the bank, and remember that the next time, every time that you hear a headline about John Boehner that makes you annoyed, put some money in a fund that you are going to spend on kicking his butt out of office. Do that for me, and I will thank you so much.
Now may not be the time to actually do the agitating. Now is definitely the time to do the candidate shopping.
Sure. Go ahead, Andy.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, if you don't have, where are you going to make the best impact? Bottom line. If you keep threatening to leave the party, you will talk yourself into leaving the party. So my question is, and I've told people this, if you keep threatening to do it, eventually you're going to talk yourself into doing it, if only to validate your own threats, so you won't look like a blowhard at the end of the bar. All right. So here's my question: this thing you're talking yourself into doing, will you have as much impact in a third party or unaffiliated as you will moving the Republican Party more in your direction, because you know as well as I do, as strongly as you feel about this, the Republican Party is going to move your way more with you in it than with you not in it. Okay? So by withdrawing yourself from it, you are guaranteeing that it will move further away, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now you can rip on it more, but what are you going to achieve? If you do not, and I always use these words, if you do not support the most numerically viable opponent to the Democrat, then you are the good person who steps aside and does nothing while evil triumphs. You must support, at the end of the day, the most numerically viable opponent to the Democrat, or you are wasting your vote. I'm sorry. I'm sorry how mean that sounds. I wish that weren't the case, but there are too many Democrats, so it is true. What are you going to do? Where are you going to make the impact? Inside or outside? I believe right now that is inside, if only because of the size of our opposition.
That is a great final thought to focus on, Andy. Before Leslie wraps up, I wanted to let everybody know what we're going to start in the new year. We've sort of previewed our left tactics segment. Last week we went into bullying as left tactics, and so every week, at least as many as we can work in, we're going to try to walk through one aspect of what the left does that we need to learn more about as a tactic and learn how to defeat. If you haven't seen those videos, check those out, or check the podcast out from last week's show. It would be the pre-Christmas show. It was a really great discussion. There's lots of great video there on the Conservative Union YouTube channel. Also, we are going to start a feature in 2015 about what do you say? And this I thought Andy would really enjoy doing, especially since this is sort of what the Party of Choice has spent so much time doing, giving us good answers and good arguments for what you normally get when someone is debating you or something like that. So we'll take a typical talking point from the leftist perspective that maybe a person in the middle might be employing, and we'll pick it apart, and we'll come up with the better answers for that than maybe we've even thought about ourselves. And so I'm really looking forward to getting Andy pulled in and utilized and equipping us all for the next year how to respond when a typical statement is made from the left, or the argument is made from a person who's parroting left talking points but maybe doesn't understand them. That may just be the one talking point they know on a subject. So really excited about that. We are going to start 2016 off in a very positive direction. I definitely want everybody to join us for that.
2015. We're not 2016 just yet.
Crap! Oh man, I'm already jumping ahead in the future 2 years. Good thing there's no checks to write anymore. I'd get the date really wrong.
Yeah, Felicia, you're getting ahead of yourself, because 2015 is all going to be negative. So we're going to be focusing only on the negative for 2015.
No, not at all. You're fired, Andy. You're totally
Shut your mouth!
And I was just going to say that, this whole New Year's resolution show has been all about being nice and keeping it positive and useful and constructive. And I keep repeating that, partly because I want to communicate it to y'all, but also, and probably primarily, because I want to remind myself and kind of obligate myself to do that, even more so than I think I tried over the last couple of years, but to really focus on making sure that what I put out there is nice and positive and constructive, and I'm with the conservative group, and that's who you want to join, because we're the nice, fun, friendly people whose proposals and policies create success and prosperity for everyone. Everyone. It doesn't matter what little group or tribe you belong to, because our ideas allow you to make all your own choices and have as much prosperity and success as you're able to get. And that's the message that I want to carry forward. And I think with the refinery next year, with our what would you say to this argument segment, and how the left how the left behaves kind of segments that we're going to be doing that'll allow us to focus and try to be more of a resource to people out there, because as we discussed, our audience for this show is not random strangers. We're preaching to the choir here. We're helping to give our audience information that they're going to need to carry the message forward. Preaching to missionaries or something. I don't know exactly what the right terminology is, but I think, as Felicia's saying here, we're the internal strategy memo for the right, and that's how this all started, was a private internal strategy session just amongst ourselves, and then we decided, hey, you know what? Why not just broadcast these internal discussions, just broadcast them live so that people can listen in if they want to, because what we're saying might be of use to somebody. And that's what this year and these 29 episodes that we've broadcast on YouTube, and there were internal private meetings that we had before that, and we've now had, I guess this will be our 6th episode syndicated on Vigilant Liberty Radio, and now we're also available on iTunes and Stitcher and TuneIn, so you can listen to us from your mobile device, whatever mobile devices you have. You can get links to all of that from therefineryshow.com. So how's that for segueing into advertising, right? At any rate, this has been we've run over time just a little bit, but it's the internet and we can do that.
Well, into advertising, I just got to say, that is everybody's New Year's resolution that we want you to go away from. Hook up with the podcast, share our stuff, make sure you are commenting and liking and plussing and tweeting all the things that we're putting out. If you are getting something out of the discussion, share that with somebody else.
We
Absolutely.
are well over 200 clips on YouTube. 200 clips is a lot of clips.
There's a lot of stuff out there for you guys to search and find, and most of those videos are thoroughly tagged and have descriptions and links to the articles that we reference in the discussion. So you can search the YouTube channel for, oh man, I think I remember they talked about chocolate sprinkles one time. You can search through there and probably find that one. And JD does a great job with the images that he puts on the front that kind of give you an idea of what each clip is about. So, use that as a resource. That's what we're doing this for. We're certainly not doing it for the big bucks, other than, JD. He's getting rich off of this whole thing, I think. And he gives that look. What? I know, I'm just kidding.
Besides, it would get taxed out because I live in New Jersey, so.
Oh, that's true. That's true. And we don't want the IRS all up in our business.
In New Jersey, it's not good.
Shell Corporation, based in Texas. We'll hook you up.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. We don't want the IRS all up in our business. We are a for-profit organization. Oh, God, the NSA just listened to that. I'm in trouble now. Anyway, I'll be back next week if I can. I don't know if they'll let me broadcast from NSA prison or Gitmo or wherever I'm going to end up. But anyway, we will be back next week, and it'll be 2015, and I won't know what year it is for quite some time, but it'll be January, whatever it is, Tuesday, 8:30 Central, 9:30 JD time, 7:30 Corey and Andy time, and 6:30 Delbert time. We'll rope him in on quite a few episodes next year, and we will see you guys. Happy New Year, everybody! Don't drive drunk. Call Uber.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody! Thank you all so much for being our listeners in 2014. Bye.